Snackle, a few-minute podcast from Self-Access Center and VR Lab, Campus YMX Ecatepec. Have you ever wondered how many times you open the fridge a day, hoping to find something tasty and quick to eat? Picture how your English will be if you ate it in bites. Keep it simple, keep it short, keep it snackable, a place where broken English is welcome. Hello, community YMX Ecatepec. How's it going? I hope that you are doing great. Guys, today I have to be honest. I have mixed feelings. On the one hand, I'm over the moon because I never thought about having the guest I am about to interview. And on the other hand, I'm kind of nervous because he's the first guest who is not Mexican, he's French. So, the way I see it, he's a jack of all trades, and you're about to find out why. So, let's welcome Noumane Rahouti. So, hello, Noumane, how are you?
Good. Thank you very much for inviting me.
No, thank you so much for accepting the invitation. I know that in the place that now it is not that late, but thank you. Thank you for taking the time to share with our community all the knowledge that you have. So please let's our community know how did you study? What did you study? Where are you from? I don't know, something about you.
Yes. So originally I am from France and my parents are from Morocco. And I started studying English here in France. And when I turned 20 years old, I went to the United States to study and I obtained a scholarship. So I continued with my master's degree, my PhD. And then I taught at the University of Oklahoma for a little bit. And afterwards, I taught in Florida. And now I am teaching in the Middle East.
Perfect. So, you studied English, but when you were 20, right? So, what about your degree? What did you study?
So when I started in France, my degree was in English arts. So it was literature and history in English. Then when I went to the United States, I changed it to English as a second language. And I focused on psycholinguistics, what happens in the brain when you learn a language. And then for my PhD, I tried to generalize a little more, and my PhD was on education in general, focusing on language acquisition.
Perfect. So, wow. Now that you have mentioned that you study how our brain works when we are learning, well, in this case, a language, how is it that your brain works? I know that you are very sure about it, so please tell us.
So, there's a lot of things going on in the brain when you're learning a language, but just to tell you a few things. First of all, when you are exposed to a language, when you learn the language, and when you use the language, those are three different things. Yeah. You can understand English, but not use it yet. You can learn English, but not use it yet. Then when you produce English, then you are in the last stage. For my PhD, my research focused on the emotional aspects of language learning. So when we look at what happens in the brain, I looked at emotions. What happens in the brain emotionally when you learn a language or when you learn anything, pretty much. And one of the things that we found out in the research was that when you're learning a language, you will always hit a wall. It means at some point you think, oh my God, I'm never going to learn English. I don't know how to do that. Emotionally, you are making it more difficult for you to learn. So we try with my team to develop techniques to go beyond the frustration of not being able to learn and manage to learn a language. I don't know if I explained correctly, but I'll give you examples afterwards. But basically it is this. What can you do to remain motivated even when you feel that it's impossible to learn?
Yeah. Wow, that is amazing. Well, you mentioned that you have taught in the University of Oklahoma, Florida, and now you are in the Middle East, right? So, can you see any differences between culture, maybe lifestyle, about the way we people learn? Is it
Yes, sure. Of course, there are a lot of differences. Now, if we focus only on cultural differences, I will give you one example.
Yeah.
When I had students from South America, Latino students, and Arab students from the Middle East, these two cultures are a little similar in the way they learn a language, because very good at speaking, not always good at spelling and grammar.
Okay.
For my students. However, my other students from China and Japan, for example, were very good in grammatical rules and spelling, but very shy. And for them, it was very difficult to speak another language. So culturally speaking, I would say that some cultures are more accepting of making mistakes by, speaking than others. That's one of the differences, for example.
All right. So I think, as you were saying, it has to do with the way they are raised. Because, for example, I don't know, maybe Japanese people or Chinese people, they are more like responsible, and they follow a pattern since they were, since they are children. And on the other hand, I mean, Latin people, maybe we are more like rebels, or we tend to be more effective and more, So I think that is a pretty good example and difference. I don't know. That is just the thing that I have experienced. And also I remember that, well, and let me say, our community that you and I met when we were in Oklahoma, right? So I had the chance to experience and to live all, and with to share time and to share time with other cultures and people from all over the world. And actually, I met this guy. He was Arabian, I guess.
Yes.
So he said Mexican girls are pretty because they are charm and enchanting and so on. And I think that has to do. I mean, but I think it has to do with the fact that Latin people are very warm and they are not ashamed of showing somehow their feelings. So if we compare that example with I don't know, as I was saying, with Chinese people or Japanese people, I think it's kind of different, even with Americans, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. You can see that culture affects the way you learn. There are a lot of things that affect you the way you learn, but culture is definitely one of them. And that definitely plays a role in the way you learn and the way you use the language,
Exactly. So talking about so how the same, have you faced any forgettable challenges with teaching? I mean, because I guess that the resources that we have in every country and continent and so on are not the same. So speaking from myself, I have to be honest. And sometimes, for example, here in Mexico, taking a course for learning English can be a bit expensive. I mean, if you go to private schools, if you are into the public ones, it might not be that pricey. But I think that, besides the cultural aspects and lifestyle and education and so on, those are kind of the challenges that we as a teachers faced. But
Yes. So if I think about sharing challenges that I have faced while teaching, it's one of the things that I'm very careful with is to know cultural boundaries. So, for example, depending on the culture, of course, there are certain things. So let me backtrack a little bit. One of the rules that I impose to myself when I am facing a new culture is to avoid SPR. I will explain.
Yeah.
A friend of mine gave me this tip. He's a teacher, and he said, Noumane, if you teach to students from different cultures, avoid SPR, which means sex, politics, religion. So a topic about these three things is just a safe tip that I was given that I think is useful regardless of the culture, Avoiding these three topics is one of the things I was told very early in my career, and I have used it for the last 15 years. I have taught for 15 years now, so I have always used that rule. So SPR.
All right. So It makes sense. It completely makes sense. And actually, because if you don't want to go that deep into having conflict about, as you were saying, culture, politics, and so on, yeah, that would be something great and clever to do in your classes, especially when you are teaching, as you have mentioned, and I think, and the experience that you have. If you want to avoid that differences or issues, all right, between cultures and ways of thinking. So let's focus on acquiring the language, and that's it. It might be a bit cold hard, maybe, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we need to have as teachers is we need to have social skills.
Yeah.
We need to always provide our students with a safe space. Even if we talk about these topics a little bit from far away, we need to be able to create a safe space that allows the diversity of opinions.
Yeah.
One of the important things. Because the main goal is to learn the language, is not to have a debate about this or that. We do debate sometimes, but I tell my students the debate is to improve your English. It's not to be right or wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And also with respect, right? So yes. Yeah. And I think that, for example, we might not go that deep into those matters, but what do you think about the acquisition that we have in self-learning English? I mean, when we learn from ourselves, I mean, there might be aspects that because of the class and because of the topic, we might not talk about some matters, but I mean, students somehow can practice by their own. So do you think that is a good thing, this thing about self-learning?
Of course, because when you practice alone, slowly you are learning English, but you are also learning to teach yourself English. So you're learning autonomy. Autonomy is the most important thing in education. In schools, whatever we learn, it's not worth much if you don't have the ability to continue deeper to learn afterwards, right? So autonomy is the number one skill that I try to tell my students about. Perfect. As they go on in their own experience, learning themselves, they learn to know themselves better. They learn about their learning preferences. They learn about their learning style. And what I tell my students, because they say, oh, Mr. Noumane, you speak a lot of languages, but actually the first language that you learn is your native language. The second language is a little bit difficult, but then the third, fourth, it becomes easier and easier because you develop techniques, you become your own teacher, you develop autonomy, etc.
Wow, that is amazing. Now that you are talking about learning many languages, I know that you speak a few of them. So please tell our community how many languages do you speak?
I would say more or less 5.
All right, which ones are those?
So I was born speaking French and Moroccan Berber, which is dialect of Morocco.
All right.
And I learned English, Spanish, and now I'm in the Middle East. I'm improving my Arabic.
Wow, that is amazing. So as I was in our community, you are a jack of all trades. I mean, please, how does your brain work? I mean, you speak French and then, yes, right?
Yes. And
all
Moroccan.
Right. Yeah, exactly. English and Arabic. You are Spanish and Arabic. So please imagine that you are speaking or you want to express something in Spanish. So how does your brain work? I mean, you translate from one to another, or how is it that it works?
At the beginning stages of learning a language, you still use translation in your mind. For example, I translate French to English. That's how I did it at the beginning. But as you use the language, as you learn English, you start thinking in English. As you learn Spanish, you start thinking in Spanish. And one thing, I don't know if it's true or not, but people say, if you want to know when you are really thinking in a language, try to see if you can dream in this language. In your dream, what are the languages that are spoken in your dreams, right? So try to think about that. And at some point, if you have a dream where there's a little bit of English, it means your brain is starting to think in English. It's a good thing, right?
All right. Yeah, I mean, that has happened to me. I just speak English. But yeah, actually, I have driven English. And I don't know, somehow just your brain start speaking and seeing the words out. So So yeah, you are right. And for example, is it the same pattern that you follow when you learn a new language? Is it the same?
So I would say a little bit. I have my own technique. So we were talking earlier about the emotional aspect.
Yeah.
The brain likes to have um, quantifiable data. I'll explain. We always say that language is qualitative. We cannot count how much we know of language. But I like quantitative data. So I'll give you an example. For example, when I started learning Arabic, I fixed a goal. I said, okay, in 1 year, I need to memorize 1,000 words. Okay? I don't focus on the end goal. I don't focus on the result. I just focus on now. I need 1,000 words. As I continue to memorize these words, I will know maybe 100, 200, 300, but I can count what I know. I know where the goal is. When you can see the goal, you don't lose motivation.
Yeah.
And when I get to my 1,000 words, then I fix another goal. Now I need to meet with an Arabic friend once a week, once every 2 weeks. It's good to fix goals that are quantifiable, that you can count, right?
Yeah.
And that's how the brain works. When the brain can count, the brain is reassured. The brain feels a little more peaceful. And this is how you can continue to learn and to learn. So my technique is always to find quantifiable steps, things that I can count, words, language, whatever, but things that I can count.
And also, I mean, you are going to be proud, like you have achieved your goal, right? So as you were saying, that is going to keep you motivated, learning.
And yes, and one thing that I want to add, when you do this, it's actually to serve a bigger goal. A lot of times we focus on the destination too much. I need to be fluent in English. I need to know this and that. And we forget that the process is actually more important than the destination.
Yeah.
In English, they say that actually the process is the destination. The process is the goal. The real goal is the process. Forget about the result. Think about how you get there, right?
Exactly. And to learn from the process.
Exactly.
In the process, you are going to start loving it and liking it and making it part of your life and your routine and so on. So, wow. So, at least just another one. How is it that you don't mix accents?
How is it that I don't mix accents?
Yeah.
I would say one of the reasons is I was raised in a bilingual house. We were speaking Moroccan and French.
Yeah.
And I was exposed to two different accents since an earlier age, right? So that helped me, I think, to develop an ear for language. I think that's one of the explanations, I guess.
All right, because let me tell you something. Once I tried, I tried to the French, but I couldn't. I just take a few classes. I have to be honest. But when I was studying to, my teacher was saying the words and pronouncing and so on. My brain, switches. Instead of going into Spanish, it was into English, and it was kind of weird, and I couldn't lose that. I even tried, and I didn't try that hard, but it was difficult for me, So
yeah, I understand. But one advice that I give my students, they always ask me, how can they get a perfect accent? And in regards to English, I try to tell them to not focus so much on accent, but to focus on intonation. Intonation is what is going to make people understand you. For example, if they learn the word independence, they need to know that it's independence. Even if they say it with a French accent, independence, but at least they have the intonation. Intonation is more important than accent for people to understand you, at least for native speakers to understand you.
All right. I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing that. And what inspired you to continue learning? I am pretty sure that this thing about multilingualism offers you a lot of experiences. But why is it that really, really keeps you learning, especially languages?
I think I continue to learn because I enjoy the process of learning. Like I said, I don't focus on the result. I focus mainly on the process. And one of the things that I enjoy about learning new languages is When you learn a new language, you learn a new way of thinking. When you learn to speak French, you learn to think in French. When you learn to speak English, you learn to think in English. And sometimes there are some words that don't translate. For example, in French, we don't have the word cheap, barato. We don't have this word. In French, we say not expensive.
All right.
The word cheap doesn't exist. So what does it mean about the French way of thinking? That's what it means. You know what I mean? So
Right.
there are a lot of things like this that I'm interested in. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Well, Noumane, finally, what is that tip or that piece of advice that you will give? I mean, you have mentioned a lot, but what is that unique piece of advice that you will say our students to continue learning English? Because, I mean, our reality, at least here in my community, is that somehow we are sometimes afraid of making mistakes or mispronounce words and do not even try it. So would you give some pieces of advice to our community? I mean, but it won't be too much to ask to do it in Spanish. I think we will, yeah, for sure. It will be, yeah, for
Creo
sure.
que la verdad hace mucho tiempo que no lo he practicado. Todavía tengo que refrescar mi español, ¿vale? Voy a intentar explicarlo. Entonces, yo lo que digo a mis estudiantes es que, ¿cómo se dice? Fallar,
Ajá, cometer errores, equivocarse.
fallar no existe. Solo es el proceso de encontrar la verdad. No sé si se dice así en español, pero es la primera cosa que digo a mis estudiantes, te lo voy a decir en inglés también, es que you are not wrong, you are in the process of becoming right. ¿Ok? Entonces, siempre confiar en el proceso, que es muy importante, y tienen que olvidar un poco el resultado, porque si se enfoquen en el resultado, eso va a tener consecuencias sobre la motivación, y la motivación, todo el aspecto emocional de cuando se aprende un idioma es muy importante, y lo que pasa es que en las escuelas no hablamos demasiado de este aspecto, solo hablamos de las técnicas de enseñamiento y de cómo aprender un idioma, pero el aspecto emocional, que es muy importante, para mí es más importante que todo el resto, es el principio de todo, no lo enseñamos mucho en las escuelas, así que tienen que encontrar maneras de guardar la misma motivación y de entender que lo que es muy importante es el proceso y que es más importante que el resultado o resultado, ¿sí?
Sí.
¿Me has entendido un poco, no?
Yeah, for sure. Sí, sí, sí.
Ahora en francés, ¿no?
Híjole. But if you want to say it.
I'm joking.
Yeah. But no, man, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your knowledge, and wow, I admire you because I mean, yeah, you are.
Admire you too.
Thank you because I mean the experience that you have and that you are able to share it. It is amazing, you know. So congrats on the incredible work that you have been doing, and please keep inspiring people, keep learning, and keep sharing that knowledge that you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So, well, community YMX at the tech, let's say goodbye to our friend Noumane. So, bye, Noumane. Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you.
All right, community. See you next episode.